Today we're going to talk about doing models. We're going to start out with the basics of models. If you'll remember, we're doing a LAN party tracking app. So the first thing we need to do is create some models so we can have stuff in our database. As you can see, there's really nothing in our models file. We have an import of models and we're just ready to go building what we need to build. The first thing to note about models is a model is simply a Python class that inherits from models.model object built into Django. So with this, we technically have a model, and it doesn't actually do anything and it won't actually help us, but we technically have a model at this point. Now what we need to do is we need to add some fields to our model. So there's several points to note on this line. We're setting a variable title, and then we're creating an instance of character field from our model's namespace. We're setting a max length of 100, and we're setting that by passing in a keyword argument in our instantiation of a character field. One thing to realize is that max length is defaulted to 50 if you were not to set a max length. In Django, we have quite a number of fields available to us to use. The next one we're going to use is called the slug field. We're setting the max length to 100 because slug field actually inherits from character field and adds extra validation to make sure the data that's in slug is an actual slug. Again, there are a number of fields available in Django, and it actually allows a lot of validation to take place later when you do model-based forms or you just want to save data to your models. That way you have the appropriate data in the appropriate format in your database, and you don't have to actually write all of that validation yourself. The next couple of keyword arguments we're going to look at are called blank and null. These are important because they deal with validation and inserting it into the database. Blank equals true tells any validation that takes place before saving that the actual value of the data in slug can be blank. It means there can be nothing there. Null is for our database specifically. This tells Django that, hey, null can be added to the database for our field value. This is important when we generate our database later on. Here we're setting our start and end date times, and these will be validated to make sure that they're date time fields. Finally, we have one other point that we want to make, or one other field that we want to make, and that's called the organizer. This is our first true relationship that we're actually going to set on something, and we're creating an organizer and associating it with our user object from our Django auth system. So we need to go ahead and import that in. The way I like to look at how this works is this foreign key is going to set up a one-to-many relationship between user and party. What's going to happen is we're setting the foreign key in our party application, and it's going to go attach itself to the user object whenever we have a user. So then we can just do user.partySet and get all of our parties for that user, or we can do organizer dot and then whatever our user methods and properties that we have available to us. With everything we have currently in mind, let's actually go start playing with some data. First thing we need to do is we need to actually create our database, and to do that we need to tell our settings where to actually create this database and what type of database to use. By default, our engine that we're going to use is SQLite 3, and the name of it's going to be db.sqlite, and it's going to put it in the root of our project. This is a nice enhancement in 1.6 that this is automatically like this, because in previous versions of Django you actually had to go set this manually. Now it's just set by default. So now we're actually ready to create our database, and it's a simple management command. It's going to create our tables. If you look through the tables that are created, it prepends the name of the app along with the user table. So if you look, we have party_party. That means the party app has the model named party, and it created that table party_party. Same thing if you look, and you'll see auth_user that uses the auth app and adds the user model table. Then we want to go ahead and create a super user for our project so that we'll have a user for us to use. And there we go, we have our tables created and we have a user in the database. If we want to go look at that, we can just open up our shell, and that's where we're going to do a lot of our work today. So this is a Python interactive shell with all of Django basically already imported, and all we have to do is start importing our apps. But first, let's take a look at our user model so we can get an idea of how to query. So it's actually quite simple. If we'll do user.objects.count, we can see that we have one total user. However, if we want to get a specific user, we can do user equals user.objects.get, and then we want to provide it an ID. And this basically is going to do a select all where auth_user.id equals 1. That's roughly the SQL that we generated to return our result. And then if we'll do that, we see we have a user object that we can start doing stuff on. And see, we don't have a full name set. Let's say we want to go ahead and set the full name. And then we want to save that to the database. Now we can do user.getFullName, and we get the full name back because getFullName is a function that concatenates first and last name. Now we have our basic understanding of that. Let's go ahead and take a look at our party object. So there's actually two ways to create a party object and save it to the database. There's the traditional object-oriented approach, which is fine to use and actually what you'll probably want to use quite a bit. And that's simply p equals party and then instantiate it. We know we have a required field of title, so we want to give our LAN party a title. And then we know we need an organizer, so we can either do one of two things. We can do and then user, and that will set the user based on the object if we have the object available to us, and this is what you'll do most of the time. Or you can go ahead and set it by the ID. And then we're just going to do a p.save. And now we have that saved to the database. So let's go ahead and pull that back out just to show you. And there we go. We've successfully created a party object, and we have saved it to the database and then pulled it back out. So let's go ahead and create another party object. You may be looking at this and being like, what in the world is going on? So let's start at the beginning. We have our party model object that has a management object attached to it, and it's named objects. You don't really need to know what that does, how it works, or much of anything like that to do a lot of what you'll do in Django. When you start wanting to get into more complex things, it's a very good idea to understand that. But for now, don't worry about it. Just know you need it. Then we have a create function that we pass in keyword arguments of the fields that we have in our model. In this case, we're setting the title as a keyword argument, and we're setting the organizer ID as a keyword argument. And then if we hit enter, it goes ahead and creates that party object and saves it to the database. So if we do party.objects.count, we get back 2 objects from the database. And if you'll notice at the top, it has in the brackets and party object. That's not a very useful name, because if we do we get back an array with 2 objects in it, but we have no idea which object is which. This can be solved fairly simply by setting a function in our party class. So if we'll set a Unicode function, this will return the title of our party in that object that we see in our console. And incidentally, if you try to print that object out in a template and just show that object, it'll print the same thing out to the screen instead of having to call the title. It's not recommended to do that, but that's what will happen. So now if we get all of our party objects, there we go. We have QuakeCon and Tokyo and Tulsa listed. And now we have more information about our party. So let's go ahead and create another object so we can show you an update and delete. So we have our party object. Now let's go ahead and query for that. So if you'll notice, I actually did something a little bit different for getting our party out. I chose the title, and then I did 2 underscores, contains, and then I gave it a string. What this does is it queries the database for the title of our party and looks to see if it has the word comics in our title. This is a really nice feature about Django's models and query set queries, because there's a lot of keywords that you can use, such as contains. In fact, when you do a search, it's automatically defaulted where if you were to do title equals comics, that it would use exact, as if it was title underscore underscore exact equals. If you're doing other types, there's greater than or less than, there's date time greater than or equal to, and date time less than, and many others that you can use. And using the double underscores, you can actually dig down deeper into object relationships for doing your queries. It's a very powerful mechanism for querying objects in your database. I really recommend that you browse the docs and get a good handle on them. And as you can see, it returned it back successfully. So let's say we want to go ahead and update a field in our object. What we're going to do is we're going to add a start date. And as you can see, we've saved a date time to our database, and since we saved a naive date time, it's going to throw a warning. What you need to do is go in and set a proper time zone date, and I'll cover that in another video. But for now, we're just assigning a date time to our start since it's a date time field. So now if we want to look at the field, we get back a date time. So let's get a list of all of our objects. We have 3 of them. We have QuakeCon, Tokyo and Tulsa, and Green Country Comics and Gaming. Now what we want to do is go ahead and delete one. I think we're just going to delete the Green Country Comics and Gaming one. Now when we do our query, we only have QuakeCon and Tokyo and Tulsa. So let's go ahead and look at our organizer relationship as how we would access that data using our model. And there you go. What's happened is when we got our party object, it also got the user object of the user that was associated to it and populated that and attached it to the party object for us to access like normal. If we were using the user authentication system and we had a request object in our view, it would be fairly similar. We would do request.user.getFullName or request.user.username. It's a very convenient way to access related data when we have proper relationships set up. Since we have a one-to-many relationship set up, let's go ahead and take a look at how to do a many-to-many relationship. So the question is, what is a LAN party without any games associated to it? So let's go ahead and create a game model and associate that with our party. Because let's face it, many games can have many parties, and many parties can have many games. So for the game object, we have a name property that we'll set for the title of our games, and then we can associate any number of parties that we want to associate with our game. How about we go ahead and jump into some code and see how that looks. Since we added a new model, we had to go ahead and run our syncdb again so that we could create our party game class and our party game party association class, since it's a many-to-many relationship. How about we go ahead and create some games. As you can see, I've gone ahead and created 3 games: Unreal Tournament 2004, Call of Duty, and Halo. Now we need to go about associating these games with our parties. It's actually a very simple process, and it can actually be done one of 2 ways. We can add the party to the game, or we can add the game to the party. So let's see an example of both. Here we added a game to a party, so let's go ahead and add a party to a game. Let's go ahead and see the games that are attached to the party, and then I'll explain the error that we had a second ago. Alright, so time for some explanation. At first, we added our game1 to our party by using game_set. When you attach a relationship that is not explicitly defined, such as party equals model.many-to-many field, then that's attaching to the party class, to the party object. So it defaults to naming the relationship name that's been attached, whatever the model name is, _set. So in this case, since party has a relationship with game, but there's no explicit name defined, it used game_set. When I tried to attach a party to a game, I used the _set, but that didn't work and threw an error because we explicitly defined party as a field on the game model. So instead, we had to do party.add and then add the party. Then to reiterate that, we used game_set.all to get all of the games attached to that party. So using the _set can be very confusing. So let's go ahead and change our model a little bit to make it a bit easier to access our information. Here we're setting a related name keyword argument. What this is going to do is it's going to attach the game query set to the party object using the name games. So that way, instead of using game_set, we can just use games as an alternative. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And voila, we're using games to get all of our games out of our party. So since everything seems to attach to everything else, I want us to actually take a look at something. Since we have all these relationships set, we can actually do a fun little query to show you how to move throughout each of your objects and how you can actually dig really deep within your relationships as long as you know what they are. So if you take a look at this command, we have you, which I've already set to the current user object. We're doing the party set because we have parties attached to each user. We're getting all of them, and then we're grabbing the first one. Then we're getting all of the games and grabbing the first one in there. Then we're getting all of the parties that's attached to the games, and then we're getting the organizer of that game, or of that party, and we're getting the username for them. So essentially what we've done is we've drilled down into the party, into the games, back up to the party, and back up to the user to get the username. And there we go, we have our username. And we have our full name. So this kind of shows you some of the strength in being able to dig into relationships, even if you have a long chain of relationships, and you can get pretty much wherever you need to go. So I've shown you the get that we've used to get one specific result, but you can actually use another function besides get called filter. What this did is it did exactly what get did, and it returned the result. But see if you can notice the difference. There we go. If you look, the filter returned an array or a collection of results, whereas the get just returned one result. You can use filter to basically start filtering and start narrowing down your choices, but you get all of those results back. And you can actually chain filters on top of filters. You can do title contains Tulsa.filter, start date is greater than today.filter, organizer is equal to blah. I mean, you can really get really detailed, and you can just do filter.filter.filter.filter to get a really tiny result set back, and then you can iterate through those. So let's go ahead and take a look at something else that we can do. We can do a limit and offset if we will do party.objects.all, and then we want to do 1. That returns us back QuakeCon. We can also do ordering. We get QuakeCon and then Tokyo and Tulsa. And then if you want to reverse that order, you put a minus sign in front of it, and then you get Tokyo and Tulsa, then QuakeCon. There are a lot of little things that you can do using models in Django to get the results returned the way you want. I really recommend, again, just diving into the Django documentation, and I'll leave some links in the show notes so that you have a good place to look, because there's a lot you can do, and it's a very powerful feature of Django. Really hope this episode has helped you in learning how to deal with models. There's a lot to it, and we've covered a good base of information for us to look at. And I hope you join me for the next episode of doing Django Basics.